go about thinking about completing those gaps as we go forward. That report is available in our website. And we have also done a lot of work thinking about the future of the workforce. We know AI is changing the work as we know. Some jobs might disappear, some jobs will be created, and we currently will probably face a transition as we go about the future. And it's very important that we can navigate that transition well as we think about the jobs that are currently displaced or being created. So as we think about AI in the context of the Pacific Islands, and here where we are in Vanuatu today, it's really important that we think about the fragility that we encounter in the island, normally considered a fragile state because of climate constraints, for example, or geographic isolation. And those characteristics, of course, influence how AI can be developed and adopted responsible. And the main reason we are here in this room talking about AI is that it offers also equal opportunities to enable a lot of what we talked about earlier today, which is the sustainable goals. We know, for example, climate change is becoming a large challenge, not only for the islands here, but across the globe. And AI offers an opportunity to think about how we go about mitigating those risks, right? I don't know how many of you felt the earthquake this morning very early, right? And it was a light experience, but I think across the islands, the reality is that some of the incidents are becoming quite serious, and AI has quite a strong role in supporting us, for example, in predicting when such scenarios are about to happen and how we can allocate the right resources across islands, for example, to support in how we think about preparing better for the future. So again, as we think about these fragilities, the key questions that often drive us is extreme climate and disaster vulnerability, for example, dependence on external infrastructure, and there's serious challenges there, and how do we think about those challenges in reflection of adopting AI. So, and the reality is that AI is here to stay, globally speaking, whether we like it or not. We discussed today a challenge which is around digital inclusion. And as we think about AI across the globe right now, we also know that there are a lot of people that don't have connectivity, access to the internet. And as we think about integrating AI, it's important that we can develop that infrastructure and making sure that we are properly prepared to adopt to that. So weak data systems, low AI skills, equally important as we see AI changing the way we work. Equally important that we think about how do we prepare generations and upskill them in a way that they will learn and know how to use AI from schools, from where education starts, right? All the way to how we see the future unfolding. I know my colleague will also talk a lot about that soon, in terms of how we go about upskilling and more training around the region. So yes, I think to summarize, these are really the key challenges that we see in the region. I think looking across the islands as well, we saw that similarly to the advice that we normally see given to Southeast Asia countries, is that the region is caught also a lot in geopolitical constraints right now. As we know, the world is becoming quite complex, and it becomes very important that we can work together as a region and collaborate on these issues rather than thinking just about the local context. we see that we are in the very early stages of thinking about AI. Locally speaking, we have few national AI frameworks in place, probably Fiji being one of them that has an AI strategy in place. And we also find, that activities usually think about isolated project-based, donor-led, external funding-driven, and limited local ownership. So the really early AI use cases that we see regionally really think about mostly really climate and disaster responses, because I think this is a very critical challenge regionally, and the role that AI has to support us with disaster prediction and allocating the right resources in time. So we have seen a lot of, I think, early use cases around the region, particularly in that issue. Large language technologies now supporting education space. They are, for example, very interesting projects that think about how we can use AI to preserve local language. In New Zealand, for example, we see how to preserve the Maori culture and language in that context. So I think the opportunities are very, very remarkable here. We're thinking about how to augment capacity, where I was just having a conversation earlier today where in some of the public spaces we don't have enough people to sometimes fill those roles, and this is where AI can have offer a remarkable support on a day-to-day in terms of how the workforce can be transformed in the tourism industry as well. Thinking about, again, allocation of resources, enabling really the leapfrogging. Of course, equally speaking, and we were just talking about that in the earlier session when we spoke about cybersecurity issues. With the adoption of AI, we have an increased list of potential risks. We know a lot about deepfake now, misinformation, biases, and as we see AI progressing, the reality is that these risks are usually progressing on the same path. How do we think about this as we go forward? It's equally important. And for fragile states, like we're here in the Pacific Islands, it remains a large priority in thinking about those risks. But the advantage is also that being in the early stages, there's a lot of lessons to be learned from other economies that have been on that journey longer and can offer lessons on what has worked or not worked for them. So just to wrap up, as we think about what would be the ideal pathway to resilience here, it's really thinking about first building the right foundations, which is really, we can't speak about AI if we can't speak about connectivity and developing the infrastructure that we need for AI to be really fully adopted and made accessible to everyone. Which is, by the way, I think the greatest opportunity with AI is accessibility, right? That today, no one in the world can have a better smartphone than the one available to all of us here in the room. And it's similar with AI, that we should be having the same access here in this room that someone in the Silicon Valley currently has. And so the opportunity is really here to be shaped in the right way. Just to give an example, actually, with a project that we are actually working under FCDO in Southeast Asia, in ASEAN. So we're thinking about how do we adopt AI to support financial inclusion. So for someone in a rural part of the Philippines, they can have the support of a large language model, agentic AI now, to speak with them in their local language, in a plain language that they can understand, to support them with financial planning and simple understanding about day-to-day life. So here's one example, I believe, that's where that can really support the local population in that use and adopting of the technology. As a second point, it's equally important that we think about those policy and principles. Again, because we see the risks growing, it's equally important that we can build the right policies and coordination to mitigate as things get escalated. And then finally, really thinking about how applications can really continue over scale or sophistication. I will just... So key takeaways, really, I think, to close this conversation is to really think about that the issue really is not whether AI will shape fragile states, but whether it will do so in an inclusive way. And how do we make sure that that is the way that it goes and in a responsible way? So foundations are essential. How do we navigate and risks and opportunities in the right way, balancing them in a way that we can adopt, but also foresee potential risks and mitigate as we go forward. So resilient, readiness, and not necessarily rapid deployment. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kelly. The next speaker is Talia Jane Beddoes, founder and director of Pacific Group AI.
Test, test. All right. Kia ora, Bolivanaka, Talofalava, Yorana. Hello. My name is Taylor Beddoes. I am the founder and director of Pacific Group AI. Now, before we begin, because it is a Monday afternoon, after all, I want to acknowledge where you are right now. It is 3:33 p.m. in the afternoon. You've been in this room since 9:30 this morning, and in that time have heard from some pretty incredible people. You've had your brain filled with frameworks, ideas, statistics, and strategies, and now there is one final speaker to go, or one final session to go at least, because I'm not the lucky last. So I'm going to do something a little bit different, and I'm going to start by telling you something to hopefully throw you off. I'm not actually here to talk about technology. Nope. Despite the headline, I'm here to talk about people. I've had people approach me in cafes, restaurants, supermarkets, even on my very way here to Vanuatu. The passport control officer back home in the Cook Islands stamped my passport and then held on to it just so he could ask me all of his burning questions about AI. Honestly, I don't mind. I love questions because it shows curiosity and it shows that people trust you enough to share what's on their mind. What I'd learned from every single one of those discussions was that nobody was really asking me about AI. Deep down, all they wanted to know was if it was for them or if they were too far behind. Maybe it's something that you guys can relate to as well. When I first moved beyond using AI as a consumer and started building with it, developing solutions, getting into the harder and more unfamiliar territory, to be completely honest with you, it got really uncomfortable fast. But like anything worthwhile, if you don't let these feelings control you, if you keep pushing forward, then you give yourself the permission and space to grow. And then one day you realize that you're no longer intimidated by the technology, you're just working seamlessly alongside it. So back in the Cook Islands, we've been leading the national upskilling on AI for working professionals since November last year. Trained over 200 people, roughly 2.5% of the nation's workforce, and we have hundreds more confirmed for April. We've worked alongside people of all ages, industries, skill levels, from CEOs and board members to admin, operational, and frontline staff. I've had professionals in their 50s. To buy and sell stocks for rebalancing. Sorry, not whether, when to buy. After doing our foundational AI training program, he fed his data into an AI tool to compare that if he had sold the stocks earlier or later, would he have made or lost money? And for the very first time in his career, he had something concrete. After proper interrogation, it turned out that his internal rebalancing strategy had a positive 7-figure implication for the fund in 1 year alone. So this is what I mean when I say that I'm here to talk about people, because it's an element that many miss, yet it is by far the most important one. Getting this right is the first step. If you get it wrong or skip it entirely, then you end up with the best AI solution in the world sitting on someone's desktop unused. The budget got spent, the solution got developed, but the people weren't factored into the journey, so the impact was void. People are a vital part of the success of AI solutions. If they haven't been trained, if they haven't been empowered, if they aren't aware of the guardrails, then nothing fundamental changes and everyone quietly decides that AI just doesn't work for your office. So that is the outcome I'm here to help people avoid. Can I get a quick show of hands? Has anyone seen this image before? No? This is a first for everyone? That's okay. So if you have a look, every single square represents approximately 3.2 million people. So together, the whole grid represents every human being on Earth. But what I want you to focus on is the colors. Gray is the vast majority of the grid, and it represents people who have never used an AI tool before. That's approximately 6.8 billion people, by the way, 84% of the population. Next up, you've got green, your free chatbot users, people who have used ChatGPT, Gemini, something like that. These represent 1.3 billion people. Now look at what's left in that little corner over there. The people who pay for AI lie somewhere between 15 and 25 million people. And the people actually building with it, developing solutions, creating systems, and working at the level where AI becomes genuinely transformational inside of companies, 2 to 5 million people, 0.04% of the population. And guess what? You've got one of them standing in front of you here today. So I want to ask you honestly, where does your organization sit inside of this picture? From our, go back one. Yep, cool. From our work in the region, I know that we're not at the level we need to be. The gap between where we are and where we need to be costs, productivity, revenue, relevance. It's not a problem that's unique to our region, which brings me to the next slide. Has anyone seen this? Sorry, it's a little bit clipped, but you can make out what it is for the most part. Anyone seen this one? No worries. So this one comes directly from Anthropic, the makers of Claude. By the way, this got released just a few weeks ago, so it's still relatively new, so I don't blame you for not seeing it. Around the edge of the web is what AI is theoretically capable of doing right now in fields like management, business, finance, and legal, education, healthcare, etc. Then there is the red section, which represents what people are actually using AI for. Unfortunately, there is no specific version of this chart because the data simply doesn't exist yet. But what I can tell you, based on everything that I've seen with complete confidence, is that if we had a specific version of this chart, that red shape would be even smaller. So those two pictures, that's where we are right now. And everything I'm about to tell you is how we start to close that gap. So let's bring those pictures back down to the ground level, okay? Because it's one thing to look at these images and nod, and it's another thing to walk into an organization and see where that gap actually lives. So before I flew out of the Cook Islands, I conducted an AI audit for a government organization. And from that single audit, we identified 42 AI-driven opportunities. Now, I want to make one thing crystal clear. This is not an organization that was failing. These are really great people. They work super hard. They are an immensely dedicated team. They were actually aware of the gaps and had been trying to address these issues for years. They just didn't know how. So what our AI audit does is it asks, given everything this organization does, where can AI assist in making things easier, faster, more impactful? It's about cutting through the noise and only presenting what an organization actually needs in order to achieve a goal. Right now, those 42 opportunities are being worked through with the agency. We've identified the 3 biggest priorities and are developing prototypes to deploy into their workforce. Imagine though, if these are the findings of one audit for one agency, if you multiply that across every government ministry, every business, every team, think back to that chart from Anthropic. That is what it looks like from the inside. There's an American consulting firm called McKinsey & Co. They surveyed nearly 2,000 organizations across 105 countries and found that despite 88% reporting to use AI in at least one part of their business, only 6% were achieving meaningful results from it. Can you guess what McKinsey found that separated that 6%? It was the preparation of people first before introducing the technology. So, because good things come in threes, I'm going to give you 3 practical things that you can take away from today. Practical thing number 1, flip the sequence. The way most organizations approach AI goes something like find the tool, buy the tool, tell the team to use the tool. Training, if any, comes last, or in some cases, not at all. Instead, flip that sequence. Understand your people first and what do they actually need. Next, have a deep understanding of the problems that you were trying to solve. Run a training session before you spend even a single dollar on software. And before you commission a solution, run an audit. Make sure that it's something you actually need that's going to have a tangible impact in your organization. In other words, know your landscape before you build anything on top of it. Practical thing number 2, don't outsource the context. Make sure that whoever who is helping you actually understands where you are. A multinational in Singapore, a solution built for them is not automatically going to be the right solution for a government agency here in Port Vila or Suva or Rarotonga for that matter. The workflows are different, the resources are different, and the cultural context is different. The best outcomes that I've seen in this region come from people who understand both the tech and our unique Pacific landscape. For example, in Papua New Guinea, it is a local homegrown company deploying an AI-powered solution that takes visa processing times from several weeks down to 4 minutes. In the Cook Islands, it's a national AI upskilling program enabling more than $300,000 in annual productivity gains for the country. It's an island government agency that had struggled to close revenue leaking loops for years, now assessing 42 opportunities for growth. It's a national superannuation fund. It's a national superannuation fund that backed local expertise and saved tens of thousands of dollars in development costs in the process. And in Fiji, it's a custom automation built for one of the largest event companies in the country, processing hundreds of invoices a week and giving hours back every single day to a key team member who was on the edge of burnout. Okay, practical thing number 3, start somewhere real. You don't need everything to be perfect before you begin. There is always a first step that is readily available to you right now. It's one session with one team where one person walks out thinking, okay, I can do this. At Pacific Group AI, we call that person the internal AI champion. They're the ones who ask the right questions, who pull their colleagues in, who keep things moving long after we've left the room. AI champions are vital to the overall success of a company's AI implementation. So people are the best starting point. Build their confidence and bring them along the journey. It's the strategy that we've been implementing here at Pacific Group AI because we deeply believe that people are at the core, that they are the determining factor of whether the tech is a hit or a miss. After all, the tech will continue to evolve, but if you have a person who understands how to think with AI, how to question it, direct it, verify it, apply it, that is someone who helps to determine whether a company lands in the 6%, the ones who see results, or the 82%, the ones that don't. So to close, I want you to imagine a Pacific workforce that deeply understands AI. Maybe it's a health worker who can use AI to document patient data in a fraction of the time and then spend the rest of that time helping patients. Maybe it's a small business owner in Port Vila who can compete because of how well they know their context. None of this is out of our reach. We are already seeing what's possible in the region when teams lead on their own terms, bringing people along the journey rather than surprising them with the end destination. The World Economic Forum projects 170 million new jobs will be created by AI by 2030. That's only a few years away. They belong to the workforces who are ready. So no, we don't need to wait for the rest of the world to decide that it's our turn. We simply need to take that first step. Me taki mata. Thank you, Tomas.
Thank you very much. That was okay. Our next guest is Sayos, and is Chief Executive Officer of Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, Samoa.
Testing. Oh, Tahalo Falava, and welcome to the last session this afternoon. I think I will be speaking about leveraging AI to transform government service delivery. As you have heard, Talia is talking about AI, so it's not a new thing now in government. I'll briefly share what's happening globally and what could it mean for us in the Pacific. Certainly not an expert in AI, but government are under pressure to do more with less. People expect faster, more accessible services. In the Pacific, distance makes it even harder. AI gives us a way closer to close the gap and improve how we deliver services. At a basic level, AI helps automate routine work and provide services anytime. like chatbots that was shared some of by colleagues here. But more importantly, it helps government make better decisions using data and even anticipated issues before they become problems. Estonia shows what's possible with a strong digital foundation. Almost all their services are online, built on digital ID and connected systems. The takeaway is that AI works best when the basics are in place. The UK focuses on scaling AI across government. They use it for tax, fraud detection, and citizen services. Their key strength is coordination, bringing everything together across agencies. With Singapore, Singapore takes a long-term approach through Smart Nation strategy, uses AI in healthcare and city planning. The lesson here is consistency and long-term investment. India shows how this can be done, work at a scale. With digital ID and AI, they improved access to services and reduced fraud. It highlights how powerful digital infrastructure can be. For us in the Pacific, this is a real opportunity. AI can help overcome distance, improve access in remote areas, and support government with limited capacity. Some practical examples, AI can help with disaster prediction, telehealth, local languages, chatbots, fisheries, monitoring, and agriculture. These are realistic starting points with clear impact. And I think our colleague from the Cooks have shared her experience with some of the examples that she has provided. But AI works only. It doesn't work on its own. We need digital ID, good connectivity, cloud systems, strong partnership, regional cooperation, like today, is also important. There are also risks to manage on privacy, security, bias, and trust. I think we heard the other session that was talking about cybersecurity and trust. If people don't trust the systems, they simply won't work. On a quick point of intellectual property with AI, ownership isn't always clear. And there's a risk of reproducing existing content. Vendor agreements can also add complexity. In our region, protecting cultural and indigenous knowledge is especially important. So the key message throughout this presentation is simple: putting in the right policies in place. We get that right, starting small, build strong foundation, and working together, AI can help us deliver better services for our people. This is a real chance for the Pacific to leap forward. And I thank you for my time.
Okay, thank you very much. So running a bit late, but we're in the stage of the questions from the public. Then does anybody have any questions? Yes. Can someone get him a mic?
Thank you for the presentation, quite insightful. I have a question with respect to AI, maybe from a approach of responsible AI, but more so from a national perspective around ethics. There is a standard on AI, which is 42,001, which is there. But for this session, it covers or talks about communities. And I say thank you to the second presenter where he touched on people. Can you, anyone from the panel, can you unpack a bit on how we see AI in the context of ethics around people? The reason I'm asking that is because the solutions out there provides a lot of benefits. We hear the risk associated with it, but at the end of the day, the users are pretty much individuals. So
became deeply interested in AI when I started looking at AI, this is maybe almost 80 years ago, AI was certainly not where it is today, but you could tell that there was a lot of ethical issues on the rise at the time. And I think that is the period where I was based in Singapore at the time, and it was a period where Singapore already, as one of the first governments to do that, they started to issue ethical frameworks across the world to think about how we are going to respond to issues such as biases, right? One example, for example, we started to see, especially in the financial services, is that banks were started to deploy AI to make decisions, for example, about who to give a loan to, right? And what happens in AI is that it's only as good as the data that goes in. And we have a history in the world that is very much biased against women, certain race, economic status. And what happens with AI is that it can exacerbate those issues. And so in that case, for example, banks started to see that when receiving applications for a loan, a white man was more certainly always going to be eligible for a loan, and not necessarily a woman, or in that case, even Singaporeans were being discriminated against white men applying for those same loans at the time. And so that conversation really started to take place where the government at the time started to put programs in place and actually had all the banks come in and start to think about how do we mitigate this or support this to make it work. And there's not a quick solution, I guess, to answer your question. We're still working on this every day, but we need everyone to work on those issues. We can't just leave those issues to the biggest technology companies right now to dictate what needs to happen. And a large part of this is, again, comes down to training and us learning about AI and making decisions when it's right and when it's wrong, right?
Yeah, exactly right. So one of the articles that came out recently before I left home as well was about Western bias and these kind of AI tools that we're using here in the Pacific, right? So then when we start to apply that to work in a practical lens, it's exactly that. Training is that guardrail. If you walk an organization through AI programs and actually tailor those programs to the work that they do in their day-to-day, that is one of the ways that we can at least ensure that there is less bias, because these are Western tools. They're trained on Western data. All of that Pacific context is missing. So one of the ways we can start to at least immediately rectify that is by putting organizations and their staff through the training.
So I have a question. The training of data in the Pacific Island, it's very limited data compared to Western societies. So how do we get that data? Because you need a lot of data in order to be able to train the AI. Anyone can.
Just to I guess start and also I guess brings back the question around ethics is that most research and most data we have relevant to AI right now, it's all Western data, right? And again, it brings back I think the perspective that it needs to meet the local context, right? The world is not just Silicon Valley, right? So we're here sitting in the Pacific Islands, and what does that mean here in this context, right? And so, one interesting project we saw happening in Southeast Asia is that, yes, governments realize we don't want a copy and paste exercise from Silicon Valley. We want something that meets our language, culture, and what our people preferences are. And so they built their own large language model, which is called Sea Lion. And they are working to spread across the region, and each government can train according to its own people's data, right? And then the issue of data is perhaps more in this context, more about quality than quantity, right? Because we want the right data. We want data from local people here, what their culture are, what their language are, And so I think that becomes a big foundation first.
Yep, completely agree. I can give you an example. So in the Cook Islands, for example, if you go on ChatGPT and you ask it to translate something into Cook Islands Māori, it can't do it. It gets confused with New Zealand Māori. I've been doing AI training sessions here in Port Vila for the last week. And in one of our exercises, I got the staff to actually get some of the stuff translated into Bislama. So that goes to show you that small population like the Cooks, we've only got 15,000 people in our country. So we're a very tiny population. Versus, what is it here in Vanuatu? Like 200,000?
300,000.
300,000. So more people, more data, more people using these tools. These tools are able to pull from that information. So that's an example of as well of like what that looks like in practice.
Totally agree with our panelists here. Also, we have national forums where importance are placed on language. Like last week, it was Samoa Language Week, and these are some of the forums where they encourage such things as best practice in terms of data. And to think that AI is a concept that is not recognized in the culture context. Right now, it's part of the culture. And to encourage conversation at the national level, to make sure that your data are being contextualized into more appropriate meaning to accept for this type of communication. So these are some of the matters that government should take on board for national to encourage data, local data.
Are there any more questions? Can someone hand him a mic?
This is a very simple question. We've heard a lot that AI will take over jobs. Is it true that AI will take over jobs, or people who know how to use AI will take over the jobs? Just a simple question.
I don't think it's a yes or no. So one of the recent papers we published in collaboration with LinkedIn, actually, because no one has the best data to tell us what exactly is happening to jobs right now. We know it's changing, right? And so LinkedIn really has incredible data on how jobs are changing. And for that context, we look just at some of Southeast Asia countries. But what we see is most definitely over 50% of jobs will change. How? Would they disappear? Not necessarily. Some of them would be, yes, will disappear. Yes, there's a percentage. Some of them will change. The nature of how you do things will change. And a portion of them will be created. Those are the jobs, for example, where we currently need people, we don't necessarily have them. So people, for example, that can pick up on ethical issues or those gaps with the technology when cybersecurity, like we saw in the session before. So we need to equip people so they can properly do those jobs in the future, right? And that's the gap that we are now in, that transition. Thinking about it, we're sort of guessing there's going to be a lot of jobs creating. How do we prepare education for those jobs right now? And that includes children at school.
So I get asked this question quite a bit. I believe it's also depending on your own stance as a company. Like one thing I actually said last week, actually in one of the training sessions, was if you look at Western companies in the States, for example, you're already seeing that there are organizations who are laying off staff. My view as a Pacific Islander is that we need to be working strategically alongside the tech. I think that we have the opportunity to figure out how we want that to play out. I don't believe that it should be replacing or eliminating full jobs. I think that organizations have the opportunity to figure out what they want to do. At the moment, the gap between where the Pacific sits and the rest of the world in regards to AI use and AI understanding is massive, right? So that gap keeps extending. There is an opportunity in that space to then dictate how we want AI to work for us. So every single time I encounter this question, my answer is always the same. I think we need to be working alongside of it. As a Pacific Islander, community is a huge value. It's a huge part of who we are as a people. So when you think about jobs being lost, I think about family, I think about friends, and I don't want that to happen. So I think that with this opportunity, we are able to pick and choose how we want that card to play out. I think it's up to organizations at the end of the day, but my stance is really clear.
Okay. My personal take, I've been using AI for since it started from ChatGPT. Of course, I pay for all the subscription. I pay for Claude. I pay for Chat. I pay for Grok. I pay for Gemini, and we have a designer team. It improves the work. It's we still have the same team. We even grew a few more people, and we produce more advertisement, more content, more text. In the programming team, I'm a programmer. I've been doing it since I know myself. And we also have we hired a senior programmer from overseas that works over here now in Vanuatu, and we now integrated our accounting system from QuickBook to Odoo. Odoo is an open source ERP. AI did an impossible job to a possible job. Will it reduce the amount of people? No, we just create more products. We create a faster task. We create more stuff that we can do more with the same team. Can it reduce employment? I think it will for certain subjects, but for now it hasn't. It's just quite the opposite. We got more people. That's just my personal take. Okay, any more questions? Okay, thank you very much. I know you guys been sitting a long time over here. And I guess the rest of the evening.
Thank you. Thank you very much to all our distinguished panelists and our moderator for steering these conversations in the right direction. I'll invite you to take your seats while we close the session. Please put your hands together for our distinguished panelists. It has been an amazing session, very, very insightful, and we are thankful to all our distinguished panelists who flew all the way from the neighboring countries to be here with us today and to share the wealth of knowledge that they have on the subject. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we come to the close of today's session, allow me to reflect briefly on the rich, forward-looking discussions from our final sessions. From session 3, we were reminded that trust is the foundation of digital transformation built through leadership. Contextualized approaches strengthens regional infrastructure and a firm commitment to inclusion and sustainability. And from this last session, session 4, we explored how artificial intelligence can shape our future, presenting immense opportunities while requiring responsible governance, investment skills, solutions grounded in our local realities. I think that's one of the most important things that has come through both sessions. We have to make sure that we contextualize everything we do to our local realities, to respond to our local needs. And so with that, I want to sincerely thank all our moderators, all our distinguished speakers for their invaluable contributions throughout the day, and to all the participants for your intelligent questions that have stirred the discussions since the early hours of the morning. Thank you for your active participation, and we look forward to continuing these discussions tomorrow. But before we leave, we had to have a coffee break, which we didn't have. Let's continue the informal conversations over coffee at the coffee station just right in the room behind there. And later on in the evening, we are being offered a welcome dinner by the government of Vanuatu. That is going to welcome cocktail that will be hosted by the government of Vanuatu in the Pacific Ballroom. I think the Pacific Ballroom is the room where we had the closed-door ministerial session in the morning. And of course, we have our young people who are volunteering for us that could show you where that is if you miss your way. So just ask any of the young people putting on the white t-shirts with Commonwealth Digital Roadshow on them. Thank you very much. It was a wonderful time having you all here today. Have a good evening and see you tomorrow.
Whoa, yeah, from the northern stars to the southern shores, we're opening up a brand new door. In every island we're growing strong. We're building the future in every space. It's the dawn of a new day. We're turning a new page, hand in hand for a better tomorrow. Digital Vanuatu to shine so bright. Commonwealth Roadshow, leading the light. Future is now with us together. The best of our islands for all mankind. Digital governance, digital economy, digital resilience for a better Vanuatu. The youths are rising with a tech smart heart. The digital business is ready to start. Where the winds blow hard and the storm clouds grow, our early warnings help us to know. Sustainable, steady and ready to thrive, keeping our culture and commerce alive. In every island we are growing generation. It's the dawn of a new day. We are turning a new page, hand in hand, for a better tomorrow. Digital Vanuatu to shine so bright. Commonwealth Roadshow, leading the light. Future is now with us together. The best of our islands for all mankind. One road for all, no one left behind. Unlocking the power of the island mind. From the school to the clinic, the knowledge is free. Digital skills here for you and me. One road for all, no one left behind. Unlocking the power of the island mind. From the school to the clinic, the knowledge is free. Digital skills here for you and me. Yeah. Digital Vanuatu to shine so bright. Commonwealth Roadshow, leading the light. Future is now with us together. The best of our islands for all mankind. Digital Vanuatu to shine so bright. Commonwealth Roadshow, leading the light. Future is now with us together. The best of